New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. This is Reverend Robert hanging out behind the banner there. Good morning. Rev BRZ over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. This happens every Friday morning here at 7 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone. Thank you for being with us on New Thought Media Network this morning. If this is your first time with us, please feel free to chat in and chime along and share in the conversation. If you've been with us a number of times, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at some of the top stories of the week and provide the spiritual spin, if you will. Top story today, Joe Biden has pardoned. What did we say it was? Up to 9,400 or something like that?
6,500, 65 to 7,000.
Roughly 65 to 7,000 people are going to be let out of federal prison for simple possession of cannabis, marijuana, pot, dope, whatever you want to call it. Now, this is not erasing all drug convictions. This is not overturning any kind of major trafficking convictions or any of that. These are all simple possession charges. People that are in jail for simple possession of marijuana and or cannabis, and I know those are the same thing. Good news in the world, Z. This seems like a move forward.
Yes, it does. I mean, and it's long overdue, and it needs to be ubiquitous. It needs to be at the federal and state level. There's still some states have decriminalized and so forth, but when you look at the vast majority of individuals that are incarcerated for simple possession of cannabis, or better known as weed, Mary Jane, whatever, are Black and brown people.
Yes.
And it's still classified as a Schedule 1 drug, which means it's ranked up there with meth. And I would tend to believe that there are not that many people in prison for possession or consumption of meth. Now, that's different if you're making it or whatever, but also the two drugs are in two different communities. There's not a whole lot of meth issues in Black communities, but by and large, those who have simple cannabis in the Black and brown community are incarcerated, or may not be incarcerated, but they got a stain on their record that keeps them from a job, from apartments, from school loans, from all kinds of things, and that's we need to remedy that.
That's one of the big parts about this is not only are these folks getting out of jail, but they are getting a federal pardon for what was considered a crime. It won't be considered a crime moving forward, and that makes it easier for them to get jobs, apartments, and everything else they're going to need to continue their lives. So it's a step. This was part of Biden's agenda in his campaign. One of his promises was to decriminalize at the federal level. I think we need to keep going. I think it needs to be legal at the federal level and get rid of all this states, the differences from state to state in these laws, because too many people, and I know quite a few people that got caught up in one way or another and it's made it harder and harder and harder. And as you say, this is definitely, especially marijuana convictions, are definitely skewed heavier towards Black and brown populations than the national average of those populations.
So, or people who are using cannabis.
Or people that are using cannabis. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Joe Biden. Good work on the federal government level. Now let's stay with the federal government just for a minute on our next story, because this one gets weird, folks. Some of you may know that the Senate races in the state of Georgia are quite highly contested. And a couple years back now, I remember watching a great debate. I don't even remember. Kelly Loeffler, if you might remember that name, was running for Senate in Georgia against Raphael Warnock. And Kelly Loeffler got up on the debate stage and started every single sentence for over an hour with the radical leftist Raphael Warnock. And that's how I got to know Raphael's agenda and his platform, kind of agree with it. And well, Raphael's been in a heated contest this year for that same Senate seat with a name you might recognize, Herschel Walker. Now, Herschel's famous for running footballs. Not judging him for that. He's a great football player. As a politician, I don't think he's going to make it. There's video evidence recorded of him saying, "I'm not a very intelligent man," and statements of such. So if anybody from Georgia's watching, please do not elect this man to office. And it gets crazier. So Z, pick it up from here. Tell us a little bit more about what we've learned in the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, as you said, Herschel's a great ball player. He's good friends with number 44, President 44, Donald Trump. 45 rather. 45. And because he gave him his first charge in the New Jersey Generals as a football player. And so he's running on this mega Republican platform, and he's espousing the family values and so forth and so on that are popular with the far right. And so now he's been caught in several things about not taking care of his kids, and the latest bombshell has been that he paid for one of his girlfriends at the time to have an abortion, which he has denied. Well, just yesterday, the mother of one of his kids is coming forward saying that she is the woman who had the abortion, and now it's become a subject that no one wants to talk about, right? But and I've heard different people saying, well, I'm not listening to it. It's far left. It's redemption, and I get that, right? Okay, I get the part about redemption. I used to think the Easter Bunny was cool. Now the Easter Bunny is a commercial, to get some chocolate sold.
A dude just cost me money.
And all of that.
He just cost me money.
Yeah. All right. And so being a little facetious there, but I understand how, as we get more information, values change. So, if he thought it was okay when that happened and now he's changed his mind, that is a matter of course for most of us, that we believed in something that now we don't believe in. But to out and out lie about it after you've been caught. Now, if you want to perpetrate that story and nobody's going to challenge you, all right, that's another thing. But now he's been challenged, and the person who's challenged him has come forward, and he's still denying it. So that, him saying, talking about how he is intellectually and now he would be a senator, and this makes it challenging, I think, for him to be a senator, or not to be a senator, but to be effective as a senator.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, right, on the my thinking has evolved on subjects, on different topics. I know the same is true for you. I know the same is true for so many of us. So many of us were taught one thing and then come to believe something else. And it is the blatancy of it is lying directly to our faces on national television, on multiple interviews. It's on par with Bill Clinton's "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." You had a child with the woman, and the reports that are coming out don't speak to whether they had a child and then he asked her to and paid for an abortion for a second child, or whether that was a first child and then they got pregnant a second time and decided to carry the child to term. We don't know any of the real details of it, but what we do know is Herschel Walker is lying to the American public, and it would appear he's playing right out of the far right playbook of tell him whatever it is I want him to believe, and then anything else is a lie, and anything else is fabricated, and anything else is an attack. And there has to be room for I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Is there room? Okay, there's my question. Is there room for I'm sorry, I mucked up and I've changed my thinking, or I'm sorry, I've changed, my thinking has evolved. I apologize for my past actions, and that's not something you would see from me moving forward.
And had he taken that kind of a stand, I think he would have picked up a lot of independent voters who would lean in one way or the other, and would have truly solidified his footing in his current party by just saying, I did it. I made a mistake. I wouldn't do it again. Even if that's not the deal, right? I mean, nobody knows what's going on in his head or in anybody's head but the person's head, right? So
well, he says it. He's not that smart of a man, so in his own words.
It's we take that biblical verse that says, "He who without sin cast the first stone," right? Now, that's an unfortunate thing I find about politics. They'll find something, not something that's egregious. Now, we've had some people in blackface and politicians, and that speaks to a character issue, I believe, right? But
right.
For someone to do something that they were young and that they didn't understand, and I guess somebody would debate me on the other issues, but the fact of the matter is that as we get older, get more wiser, we have different of opinions of how we navigate life.
Right.
But in politics, we hold these things, and we have to stop doing that. I'm not the same man I was at 15.
Yeah. Yep.
Or 20. Or 25. I mean, come on.
Unfortunately, it would appear that Herschel is the same man he was at 15 or 20 or 25, because he's just outright lying to whoever is asking the questions to get what he wants, or what he thinks or what he's been led to believe he wants. It's really his own son has come out and publicly condemned him for not taking care of his kids now.
Yeah.
So we know the man has paid for an abortion. We know that he has children from multiple women. None of that is a crime. None of that is morally wrong. None of that is sending him to quote hell. But let's be real. If you're preaching one thing out of one side of your mouth and living something else after you get off camera at the end of the day, that's a problem. That's where I think he could use some help.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be interesting. Boy, these midterm elections are coming up quick here. I think we probably got about 6 more weeks of it before they hit the hammer.
before they tell him he lost.
and you know, the challenge is going to be across the country. You know, the changing the power, the seat of power by who wins these elections, and
Right. And
so,
you know, our good friend Linda's saying if he changed his thinking and then told the truth, it'd be different. He continues to lie.
Yeah.
Exactly, Linda. Change your thinking, change your life. That's what that phrase means when we say it. If you change the way you're thinking about things right now, you're going to change how you express and how you experience life. He might have had a shot to get to the Senate. That could have been the game changer, to come forward and say, complete attrition, I am responsible, I am sorry, I am going to change my ways, I've had an evolution in my thinking around this topic, and I used to believe that was okay, but now I don't. He could very well have swung, as you said, moved those swing voters, moved those independents and undecideds in his favor, and we'd have another Republican lackey in the Senate.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we also, you know, I'm watching closely the race up in Pennsylvania where you got Dr. Oz running. You know, that's a highly contested, heavy race that's going on up in Pennsylvania. That's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that I've been watching that one as well, and Dr. Oz. All right, it's tough. You know, he was a doctor at one point. I don't think he is a doctor anymore, to be honest with you folks. He's totally become a politician, and is John Fetterman is his candidate up there. And Mr. Fetterman really does look like a man of the people, for the people, and with the people. Dr. Oz just looks like another white elitist who moved to Penn. I don't even think he lives in New Jersey, right? Or he's from
you know, I know he's from somewhere in Middle East Arab nation. I forget exactly where he's from. That's his nationality. And so, but I'm not sure where. He has to have some residence in Pennsylvania, or he can't run. So but you know how they do. They buy a place, they pay taxes, and now I'm a resident. You know, now I'm a dual citizen.
Yep.
And then they go in.
Yep. And that's the thing. His primary residence is in New Jersey. He owns, his primary home is in New Jersey. His wife lives in New Jersey, and he's got an apartment somewhere in Pennsylvania. That makes him a citizen. It makes it so there's reform that wants to happen here. But in a lot of ways, folks, I think we need to open, all of us just need to open our eyes a bit more and stop taking the party's word for it, and start listening and start looking at who is real and who. It's interesting. I got a political poll the other day on the phone, what the pollsters called. So I like to play along with the pollsters. If you're trying to sell me an auto warranty, I just hang up on you. But if you're taking a poll, I figure, all right, you know, somebody's trying to make a living there, and let's tell them what I think. And it was actually a pretty good poll because it wasn't pushing me in any one direction. It was really about name recognition and if the election was today, who might I vote for? But I realized they're throwing all these names at me, and I don't know any of them. This is state level politics here in Colorado. I've heard a couple of the names, but it pushed me to realize I don't pay quite enough attention to my state level politics. Yeah, I vote the party line. I trust what my party's telling me about people at the state level. Interestingly enough, the day after that, my voter information packet shows up in the mail, a little booklet. Like normally, I'll wait till election day, look at those things. And this time, all right, let's read into this. Let's find out what these, are they really Coloradans? Or, yeah.
You know, here's the challenge that I think most people who say they don't vote or they're reluctant to vote, I think part of the problem is, and I know it is for me, I'll just speak for myself, but I think I can speak for a certain percentage of the population who are in the same vibration, is that these ads that they do are so inflamed. I don't know if you did. I forget who the candidates are. There's two candidates running against each other here in Colorado. One has a bunch of oil workers saying that, hey, they saved our jobs. And then the person that they're running against, they have another set of guys saying this person helped with solar, right? So now they're trying to pit each other against solar versus natural gas here in Colorado, or alternative, which could be solar or wind. And there's a lot of both here. But the challenge becomes, we never really, they pick a hot bread issue and they push it, and people get just sick and tired of it. And they don't even want to find, because most of these candidates obviously are sitting on multiple issues. They take the firebrand. When push that, you get just blinded and you say, I don't want anything to do with either of them. So you don't go get the booklet, you don't read, you don't become real informed. And now we have a challenge. So they need to send the books out earlier, not 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever before. Soon as the thing comes, they need to send that out so people have time to study and answer these questions legitimately in terms of who to vote for.
Yep. As you're sharing, it jumps in my mind. Maybe it's time for a oneness party to really help people see that, because if we look at any one of these issues independently, we do get blinded with the immensity of all these individual issues. Abortion, gay marriage rights, licensing. The baker here in Colorado, the world's most famous baker who doesn't like to bake cakes, is in the news again this week too, and in court again for refusing to bake a cake for a trans couple. And if we take all of these in, it becomes overwhelming. A oneness party might want to look at the whole thing and say, hey folks, the whole system needs to be revamped, not just this piece or that piece, or I'm going to work on this one thing, or I'm going to work on that one thing. So again, neither Herschel nor Raphael Warnock seem all that interested in discussing or exploring that issue of Herschel lying. They're calling him out, but Raphael's staying as far away from that topic as he can as well. I think we need a system where people can come together and express some of this oneness. Yeah.
Well, speaking of oneness, I'll tell you, some of the events that happened last week in California on anything but oneness.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And folks,
if you're asking what happened in California last week, wait until you hear this story.
There was I think it was in Riverside, California, football team. Some of the teammates had some of their black teammates as a prank, as all of the news reports I've seen, or most of them anyway, call it a prank, where they auction off in a slave auction some of their fellow teammates that somebody recorded and got released, right? Well, first of all, people should know everybody got a phone, and everybody's looking for 5 minutes of fame. And so if they capture you on camera, buddy, if it's gonna give them some fame, first and foremost, it's coming out.
Right.
But even worse, I mean, that's just a tidbit. That's just a pearl of wisdom. But to think that we talking high school students who put 3 of their teammates in front of a building or a room with nothing on but their underwear, and they're auctioning them off as slaves. That is, in this day and age, in this climate, you would think someone would be smarter than that.
Yeah. This one absolutely blows my mind. And so we went out and watched the clip this morning, folks. It's about 17. The whole video is 17 seconds. And it's pretty obvious that this isn't somebody getting caught, that this is all staged. Guy with a cell phone knocks on a door. A young man in his boxers, opens the door. He doesn't look all that white, let's put it that way. But he's lighter skinned than the three teens that are, quote, for sale. When I look at the people in this video, there definitely appears to be some Asian background in there. There definitely appears to be some Hispanic background in, and these aren't for the guys that are being auctioned. These are the guys doing the bidding. And it's pretty obvious they're all playing to the camera. And beyond, like, I can't imagine the pressure. You probably can, but I can't imagine the pressure to be a black guy and have to go through that, to have to agree to it somehow, because somehow they had to get them to agree to it. That none of them are in chains. So whether it's hazing or whether it's a prank, it don't look like no prank to me.
No. And you're right. Most people haven't been put in those kind of situations, and you never know. I mean, but you take a kid, let's say he's a decent athlete. He may have some aspiration and he may have some opportunities, and he doesn't want to make waves or whatever. I mean, who knows what's going on in the minds of youth? They want to fit in. I mean, there could be a myriad of things. But the majority of people in the society don't have to make those kind of choices, right? If that was happening to white boys up there, they could categorically say no and walk away from it and not be scathed. Now, these kids may have been able to do the same thing. I don't know the full, we only know what they tell us. But I know and I don't know the population of the school, which would also begin to dictate what kind of pressures are placed on them. Could be a good academic school. They don't want to lose that. And none of this is excuses. These are just facts that kids have to deal with if they find themselves in that situation. And so, it is just the idea that we're still dealing with selling people in an auction at any level, whether it's real, which we know still happens, or a prank. It is outrageous, and it is inhumane, and it is degrading and demoralizing, and we should not. I mean, well, and good for the school, because they've canceled the whole football season for the rest of the year. Now, that's going to hurt some athletes who may be seniors trying to get a scholarship, but hopefully their body of work will allow them to still do that. But I mean, what do? How do you reprimand, or how do you call out those who did it? Now, if it was one or two, they could have said, all right, well, let's just get these 2 or 3 off. But at that point, when you look at the video and you see all the people in the auction audience and those there, it's kind of pervasive. Excuse me, it appears to be pervasive on the team. And so, how do you deal with it?
Yep, they definitely. They hurt their future. There's no question there, because all these kids are going to be identifiable.
Yeah.
The school did release statements that this is reprehensible, not representative of the district, and that this does point to the fact there's still a lot of work to do behind intent and impact, between their intent and the impact it has in a greater society. They didn't actually cancel the season. They suspended the players. So all of the players were suspended, not from school. They weren't expelled from school. They were suspended from sports activities, which left the team with not enough players to field a team, and therefore they forfeited all of their remaining games. That, I think that's fair too. That doesn't penalize any of the other teams in that league, in that region, in that area. But this is disturbing. And in some ways it's disturbing, and okay, there's always that little bit of good, right, folks? So we shine a little bit of a brighter light on the fact that this type of systemic racism is still very much alive.
Yes.
It does appear that there is still some of the, that there is, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, even the racism within communities of color. towards other communities of color and themselves in some cases. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in this video. Is this isn't a bunch of Aryan Nation. This isn't a 98% white school. This looks like a pretty diverse group from the representative of the video, of the group that's in the room bidding. So where did we go? Where did we go wrong in letting these kids think that this was an appropriate skit, a prank? How do they think this is truly a prank? Tough questions we're going to have to answer. Yeah. But it shines light on the problem, which gives us the opportunity. And it led me to find a similar story where back in March in North Carolina, a school did something similar. And in that case, it wasn't a prank. It was a quote lesson, and it was a middle school, and teachers and faculty were present during the mock slave auction to teach these kids about slavery. Now that was a 98% white school, and that was overt racism like nothing I've ever seen. But there's 2 incidences in a year where public schools, where there's a mock auction of people.
Yeah, and you have to ask at some level, what is being taught at home? What kind of images or statements or ideologies are being taught in a home that a kid would think that that's okay, whether it's a prank so-called or a lesson being taught in school that seems to be sanctioned by the teachers. At some point, somebody should say, this is wrong.
Yeah. Teach your children well, folks. Teach your children well. It's I sound a little bit like an old hippie there, I think, but it's an old hippie song. Teach your children well, and that's our call today. That's our invitation today. And if your children are already grown and out of the house, that's okay. Teach our children. Be a living example. Be a living demonstration. Be willing to say this doesn't it doesn't stand for me. This doesn't jive. This is not a workable solution. What can we do? And let's get out in conversations. And you know me, I'm going to say it. Get out and vote.
The time is coming near.
The time is coming near. Exactly. Oh, Z, it's good being with you on a Friday morning. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's it's fall in Colorado, so the weather is changing every day. It's still nice, but it's changed. A lot of fog this morning, and temperatures are down, and it's a beautiful time of year here in Colorado. But like all things, it shows us that times they are changing, so we need to keep up. I can't be wearing my short pants too much longer.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Now, folks, we talked about Herschel Walker. We talked about a high school football team. I would be totally remiss if I didn't ask my brother, how the Broncos do it? They had a game last night, right? Oh, okay. So we're not, yeah.
Yeah, no, the Broncos, they got time, but boy, that clock is ticking. But, and we'll have to, we talked about this once before, real quick. There's been a lot of controversy in the league now on concussions, right? Yeah. Because in 2 weeks, we've had 2, maybe 3, and there was one in the game last night where a player had a concussion. He could hardly walk after a hit. And so that's going, after all of the CT stuff and all of this other information, and they got these doctors on the side, supposedly independent, these kind of incidents are still happening. So that's definitely a future show that we'll have to come back to again and just look at.
That sounds like a whole show. CT and concussions in all levels of football.
In all levels of football. Yeah. So, all levels of sports, because it happens in soccer and more in soccer, and I think and in rugby where there's some contact. But
right. And soccer, it's from heading the ball. Right?
Yep.
It's that movement of your brain's going one way and the ball's going the other way. And we know what happens when an immovable force hits an unstoppable object. So, yeah. All right. That's a whole nother story, folks. And hey, if you have a story idea, something you'd like us to cover here on Ministers Talking Shit, please do send us an email. ministertalk@ntmedia.org. If you hear of something you'd like us to chat about or bring a spiritual perspective to, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, also, please like, share, and subscribe. Let your friends know what we're doing here on Friday mornings, and we'll be sure to share more with you as we go. All right, we're out of here. Final thought?
Let's get educated on all these issues. And have some courageous conversations, and let's try to get to the root cause of these and begin to, if nothing else, change them in our life or reinforce these ideas of positivity and oneness in our life so we can continue to better the society.
Absolutely. I have two pieces. Thank you, Z. I have two pieces today. Number one is vote. Number two is don't pretend to sell people. Doesn't seem that hard on either account. I love you, folks. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back again soon. Until then, we wish you peace and richest blessings.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.